Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and this is a very special model that might just be my favourite. There's a bit of a meme about saying that whatever you're working on at the moment is your favourite ever, and you know what? That's pretty healthy. If you find excitement in painting your next model, then you're going to enjoy painting that model all the more. And so, in this video, I'll paint it and I'll enjoy doing so. This is the historical version of the Queen Boudica model from Bad Squiddo Games, sculpted by John Morris, Mystic Spirals. They sell these as a pair with a fictionalised version wearing male armour, which is possibly anachronistic, although I'm not a historian. With a quick bit of research, I found that chainmail did exist at this time, and the Romans did get it from the Celts, although it was a couple of hundred years after Boudicca's time. It is quite possible that Boudicca may have had this type of armour. But just before I paint it, I'd like to address the pudding base in the room by moulding it inside of a 25mm standard base. This is a moulding idea that I've been using for a little while, and I really need to get around to making a video on. Once the resin is set, I put some stones and some random white powder from the kitchen onto the base to make a craggy surface. I did try to scrape it away from her skirts, but the model itself has the skirts touching the ground, so I just guess I'm stuck with that. For the first time, with this particular model, I actually did do a little bit of research, and not proper primary research, just 10 seconds on Google, to see what Boudicca might have looked like. There's paintings from all throughout history, and they're awesome and all, but they don't really agree in the slightest. I did find one with similar colouring to the sample painted version from Bad Squiddo's page, and you know what? I really like that. So I hit the model with all of the base coats, with each section getting two paints mixed together for highlights and shadows, and the mix of both becomes the midtone. Although with the hair I went back and forth over several different colour styles. My limited research says that her hair is tawny, which is more of a light brown, but Celts are famous for being ginger. So I went at it with some tan and some orange and some brown and brown wash and then some more orange, and ultimately it ended up being a little more ginger, but I'm totally okay with that because it looks awesome. I filled in her dress with some light brown, heavily highlighted into tan, and the cloak got a beautiful blue. I've done a cloak with these same blues before over a year ago, and I loved the colours then, and I still love them now. After painting the skin as well, I mixed in some of my skin tone with the leftover light blue, and I thinned that perfectly and used my sharpest brush. Lining in Celtic tattoos, or woad, is a whole video that I need to do at some point, but I've enough practice to make Boudicca's woad look, well, it's fine, I guess. Then I realised that I have a whole lot more lining left in my immediate future. That painting and the sample paint job have tartan patterns on both the dress and the cloak, which might be incorrect based on the misconception that she's Scottish. She is not. She was the Queen of the Iceni, whose land was in modern-day Norfolk. That's a bit of a walk from Scotland, but she was Celtic, and over time the Celts were pushed north, so there's some connection there at least. Regardless, I'm painting tartan, one of the hardest things I could have chosen without any preparation at all. But it's not actually all that terribly hard. If you thin your paints correctly, roll a perfectly sharp brush, and clamp your hands together for stability, then you can line tartan. In fact, I think this is an excellent practice pattern for learning freehand, which I'm actually trying to do, and by accident I'm practicing here. I'm not following any specific pattern, not even my own clan's Colquhoun. Well, I say my own clan, I'm so many generations removed from Scotland that I'm not supposed to wear this tartan properly. You know, tradition and all that. I would have to wear the Jacobite tartan. So for this model, I'm just picking whatever colour I think would look good over the base layer that I put down already, and just trying my best to follow straight line around the contours of the clothing. Which might not have come out geometrically perfect, but this is clothing, and so some inconsistency should be expected. I followed the shape of the clothes as best I could to make the tartan appear like it's on the fabric rather than just kind of thrown over the top, which is exactly what I have actually done. Well, after all of this effort, you might notice that she is somewhat unarmed for a warrior queen, and I'm about to fix that with a little bit of time travel. But first, an explanation. Spears, the most common battlefield weapon for thousands of years, are a difficult one to make a scale model of. They end up as very thin plastic or resin or pewter, which can bend or break, and so many companies end up making them thicker and thicker to give them some strength. And that is perfectly fine for hero scale models where everything is oversized and cartoony. But for a more true scale model, like this Boudicca, it would be better to have a correctly scaled spear, so in steps North Star figures with their wire spears. These are, as the name suggests, a piece of wire or a thin metal rod, where the end has been hammered into a spearhead shape. They are steel wire, so nice and strong, and thin enough to be in scale for a spear at 28mm hero scale, even if it's on the true scale side of hero scale. And there are some factors to consider, of course, so let's look at how to fit them. In the case of Boudicca, her fist is a solid piece of pewter with two dimples to help guide the drill bit. You take a pin vise, or if you're brave, a craft drill, and slowly drill into the hand from each end until you meet and have a hole all the way through. Then you simply cut down the wire to the right length, and you're sorted. Now, I decided to paint the model in sub-assemblies, as I knew that tartan would be difficult to paint. And when I came to fit the spear, I had painted that separately, and wouldn't you know, all the paint scraped off as I pushed it through the drilled hole. Thankfully I have some brush on primer, which stuck to the wire just fine, and it all assembled together. I wonder if taking some sandpaper to these wires would help paint stick, but I don't think it's necessary, and we'll see as I use this model if the paint wears away. The final touch is the shield, resting on the ground. Glued into place, I painted the boss with a rose gold to be brass or bronze, and the rest red with yet more panel lining inspired from the sample paint job. I've noticed recently that several of my favourite model evers have been casual poses rather than combat poses. Confident, badass figures carrying weapons with well-experienced hands, and Boudicca fits that style. She's my favourite model ever, for this week at least. I could go on, but I might just have some other historical Celt stuff to work on, and maybe in a future video. But for this video, my model is painted, and I love how it came out. Thank you all very much for watching. I'm ED-SKaR, and I always will be.